Going to be doing comedy tonight. I'm just going to be another musical act, so I'm just going to air guitar for 10 minutes. Is that good? No. So you wouldn't know from this secular, debonair-looking exterior, but I grew up an Orthodox Jew, and my family was ridiculously strict. But sometimes it took it a little too far. I mean, they were so hardcore about the whole pork, kosher only rule. They wouldn't even let me have a piggy bank. And, and then it came time to, ask some of the tough questions. I'm a young boy, but my parents, it was just easier for them to avoid answering the question than actually, explain to them a really complicated religion. So, Hanukkah would roll around, I'd be like, Dad, the Hendersons have a Christmas tree in their house. Why don't we have a Christmas tree? My dad would think and find, he's Israeli. Well, you see, unlike the Hendersons, we care about the environment. We don't cut down trees for our holidays. Oh, okay, Dad. Well then, why don't we recycle? Damn it. What's he gonna say? Well, you see, son, because this man we don't believe in did this stuff that we don't think happened. The first part is much easier. But then there was a fateful day where I asked the big question. I dropped the J-bomb. I was like, Dad, who's Jesus? He thought, he's thinking, I could tell he's just grasping at straws. And finally, the light came off. He's like, son, Jesus. He is our gardener. And it's pronounced Jesus, okay? Well, okay, Abba, but then why does everybody say he's the Son of God? Son, that's because his work is immaculate. So right now it's Passover. And part of the tradition of Passover is passing on to the future generations the story of how the Jews were slaves in Egypt, and Pharaoh wouldn't let them go, so he brought 10 plagues, and then Pharaoh eventually had enough, and he let all the Jews go. But I have a 4-year-old nephew. It's like, how do you tell a 4-year-old nephew about all these terrible things that happened to the Egyptians? You gotta break it down to their level. So for your pleasure tonight, I rewrote 4 of the 10 plagues, but as written by Dr. Seuss. And Moses said to Pharaoh, let my people go. And Pharaoh said, I could not let them go. They'll stay forever. Sorry, Mo. So God unleashed 10 plagues upon the Egyptians. For the first plague, he turned the Nile into a river of blood. And the very next year, it made for an interesting flood. For the 4th plague, God unleashed a plague of wild animals who went on a rampage of killing. And even from the top of Mount Huzit, you could see their blood spilling. Morbid, right? When the tigers would tear, arr, the Egyptians would swear, shucks. And when the eagles would fly, the Egyptians would die. Dead. For the 9th plague, God sent darkness all across Egypt. And Pharaoh was stumbling and bumbling about and crashing into walls like a blind man with gout. But for the last plague, the firstborn were dying, the mothers were sitting there crying. But Pharaoh stood proud and said, damn it, what did he say? And Pharaoh stood proud and said, Pharaoh stood proud and out his mouth swore, fazed am I not, I can always make more. But then Pharaoh reached beneath his tunic and found to his surprise that God had made him a eunuch. So Moses said to Pharaoh, you're dumb as a brick. The Egyptians are beat. Can we go now, you prick? Happy Passover. So, as you all know, the economy is not well. And as many 3Ls, I'm learning that my job prospects aren't what they thought they were going to be. So I'm looking at alternative careers. And instead of being a DA, I may have to go do criminal defense work. And I think it's an admirable job, but it's hard to defend people when you're 100% sure they're guilty. So I was just afraid, you know, what happens if I have to defend a guy on a murder charge and it's just so open and shut? What do I do? And then it came to me. I'll make it sound good, but totally sell them out. You know, so just kind of highlight all the bad facts, make a precedent, but look good. So this is pretty much the closing argument that I would give in this kind of case. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if the defendant was guilty, then why would he leave vials of his blood all over the victim's apartment and then give himself a haircut in her sink, leaving hair follicles everywhere? And the note that they found, the note which says, "I killed the victim," signed in the victim's blood under his Twitter handle, BundyFan666. Now, who are we going to believe? Science or a God-fearing fellow man? And last but not least, we were all recalled that when the police found the defendant in the victim's apartment, he was wearing the victim's skin. And yet, at trial, he could no longer fit in it. Well, as Johnny Cochran eloquently established in People v. Simpson, if the skin don't fit, you must acquit. Thank you. I got time for one more, or is... All right. So, we all know that attorneys are the masters of words, but one of the things that we're best known for is taking something that's wrong and broken, and instead of fixing it, just making it sound like it's fixed. You know, so instead of a label saying, "Warning, this will kill you," an attorney comes along and goes, "Caution. Use of this product might result in an untimely departure from the world of the living." Makes you feel warm inside. Well, the greatest example of this that I saw was in the Pepperdine parking lot, right there on the side of a car. Nice little sticker. It said, "Partial Zero Emissions Vehicle." For all of you not laughing, I'll repeat the important part. Partial zero emissions. Can anybody explain what partial zero is? Either it's zero or it's not zero. There's no such thing as partial zero. Like ladies, if you're gonna go make out with the guy, and you're going in for the kiss, and all of a sudden you see a big red flashing stop sign on his lip. You approach him about it. If he says, "Oh babe, yeah, this thing, don't worry about it. I'm partially 100% herpes free." Do you really feel better? Or if you're interviewing a prospective roommate, you're like, "All right, well, hello, Mr. Johnson. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you. Why don't you go ahead and tell me a little about yourself?" "Well, I was recently released from an institution, and because of my medication therapy, I'm now partially 100% free of my homicidal tendencies. So I only partially want to kill you. Don't you feel partially safer knowing that?" All right, guys, that's my time. Thanks.
Give it up to Leor.